Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Chu, the Center for Asian American Media's Membership and Donor Relations Manager. On behalf of CAM's team, thank you for joining us at CAMFest 2021. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge the wonderful community groups and organizations that are helping us promote our CAMFest programs and events. For today's program, we would like to thank the Asian American Women Artists Association. I encourage you to check out Ayow's programs and events. CAMFest 2021 and CAM's year-round programs and events are possible thanks to our wonderful community of supporters, including people like you. Help us bring compelling and diverse Asian and Asian American stories to light by donating or joining as a CAM member at our secure website, caamedia.org. For a limited time, new members can save 15% on our friend and supporter memberships using the promo code CELEBRATESTORIES. You just watched the Crosscurrents Shorts program, which features films that address the complexities of growing up. We are thrilled to have the filmmakers here today with us to discuss their projects. First up, please welcome Kayla Lewis, the creator and writer of Parts in America. Welcome, Kayla. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on the film's world premiere at South by Southwest.
Thank you.
So, get started. My first question is, how did you develop this film?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because my project is actually a TV pilot. So we're in the short film section. And it was funny because when I applied to this festival, I was like, they don't really have an episodic category, but I'm just going to submit anyways and see what happens. And so luckily enough, we were so fortunate to be included in this shorts program with all these other wonderful films. So we're really excited. But yeah, so the project's a little bit different than other shorts because we're just, intending to kind of kick it off and potentially make more episodes. But we made this at NYU Tisch School of the Arts. It was our senior thesis project. So I wrote it in 2019, and then we shot in 2019 and we finished in December, like right before coronavirus happened. So we were really, really fortunate to be able to finish since a lot of other film school students weren't able to make their projects that year. So we were fortunate. But basically, I wanted to make a show that was about, I really like YA content, especially TV shows, but I never really seen, there's more now, but when I was growing up and really consuming that stuff, I hadn't really seen Asian people in the center of the story. And, I wanted to respect young people and the struggles that they go through by not over dramatizing their problems. And so I wanted to kind of present an Asian American story about a young woman who's come from South Korea to live with her family in Illinois, and also just, touch on immigrant experiences and also, Asian American experiences as well. And just, having a good time. I don't know if that was a good explanation, but yes.
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much. I loved reading YA stories growing up, and I can definitely understand kind of your sense that there wasn't enough, at least media content centering those stories. Even now, there's still such a lack of that representation. And I really loved all of the many kind of subjects that you kind of touch upon in this, what sounds like is the first episode of what you hope will be this series. There were a lot of scenes in the film that really resonated with me, but in particular, there is a scene between the grandmother, Harmony, and the lead character that kind of it touches upon the importance of mental health. Can you discuss a little bit more about how you decided to include that topic in this piece?
Of course. Yeah. Well, it was interesting because when I first started writing this, it was very much like a network sitcom kind of show. So, and it's very much not that anymore. So there was just a lot of drafts in between and kind of figuring out what exactly I wanted to talk about besides just like making jokes about like what it's like to be Asian and like go to high school. And so I was working with a professor at the time. He was, guiding my journey and helping us make this project. But he was really encouraging me to kind of dig deeper into my own personal experiences and get to like the root of humanity, not just Asian people specifically. And so I had to like think back on like some things that had happened to me. And Jamie's experience, with someone in really close to her attempting suicide, that had happened to me, almost immediately before I wrote this. And so I was almost like with this sitcom idea, I was kind of trying to escape that. And I wasn't really trying to think about it. And I just wanted to write something nice and happy and fun. But then I was like, okay, if I want to like really think about what it is to be human, not just Asian, I have to turn and face this problem that I'm just trying to ignore. So I tried to put all of these feelings and like, I had gone through a lot of therapy, and just trying to like incorporate all of that into this project to hopefully kind of help people feel understood and seen. I'm not like solving, I'm not solving, any issues here, but I think just, being able to bring it into conversation and make it not so stigmatized, just through talking about it. And I think specifically in the Asian community and Asian American community, it is a little stigmatized. I mean, it is in America generally, but specifically in our community, it can be hard to talk about. So I kind of wanted to bring that in. And that's my answer.
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, that's, thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, and I'm really sorry about the loss that you faced in your life, and mental health and issues of well-being are a stigmatized issue. I mean, I know that firsthand from my family, and I think it's great that you're trying to make that theme just not so stigmatized by including it in just as part of the interactions in the film. And we only have time for one or two more questions, but I do want to ask, since you did mention this, you plan for this to be part of a series. Are you working on the next episodes, or what are your future plans for the series?
Right. Well, I mean, it's tough. I just got out of college last year, so I'm very fresh in the industry. And so it was really great premiering at South by Southwest. We got a lot more eyes on the project, and there was a lovely production company that is, helping me kind of build out the project a little bit. By no means are we like ready to go. Like I haven't we're just very, very, very early days, but it's just things that we're thinking about. So yeah, it's on the mind, but early days.
Oh, well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the project kind of develops, because this first piece was just really compelling. So unfortunately, we have one time for one last question, and that is, how can folks connect with you and learn more about your work?
Well, we're on Instagram. Our project is on Instagram at Parked in America Show. There's the nice banner. Thank you. So you can follow us there. We post, just updates about what we're doing, what festivals we're at, all that kind of fun stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm also on Instagram at KUmiLu. And that's where we are. So give us a follow.
Well, thank you so much, Kayla. We're looking forward to seeing what comes next for you and the series. And thanks again for sharing your project with us.
Thank you so much. It was so fun.
Okay, next we have Danielle Ayow, the director and lead subject of But You're Not Black. Welcome,
Hi.
Danielle.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your deeply personal film about your experiences as a Chinese Trinidadian. Really appreciate it. So my first question for you is, how did this project come about?
This project started as a joke, actually, because my background is in comedy, and I write parodies and I write sketches and I write stand-up, and so I made a joke about myself, basically about my cultural heritage, and from there, I guess I started ranting more in my stand-up about my cultural heritage, and it started to kind of spin into this narrative that I wanted to explore more with this documentary, and it's something that I kind of always wanted to do.
Oh, wow. And okay, it's interesting to know that your experience is in comedy, and I could definitely, there are so many funny parts about film and the way that you kind of approach what can be and are very challenging kind of questions around identity. For those in our audience who are not familiar with one of the concepts that you bring up in the piece, cultural racial dissonance, can you briefly explain what that is and how that how that impacts your life, or how that's part of your life?
Absolutely. So cultural racial dissonance is the difference between you look at yourself in the mirror and you know your history, you know your past, you know what you like, but what you think of yourself and how you feel culturally is not what other people are telling you you are. It's not how people are treating you. And so they're looking at you, they assume they know everything about you, where you came from, where your parents are from, what you like, and it doesn't match up with how you actually feel. And I did want to approach the film with a little bit more comedy, because it's absolutely ludicrous to tell somebody, but you're not Black, and which is something I did here growing up. It's like as if I've never looked in a mirror myself. Like, I'm well aware of what I look like, but that's what cultural racial dissonance is.
Wow. Well, no, thank you for explaining that. I mean, that must be, it's probably pretty offensive to be told that you're not, you are, and how you identify, how you identify. Can you kind of tell us more about, so I really loved, how you approached it with humor and kind of the different conversations that you have with your family, the professor, and Paula Madison, among others. They were really eye-opening. If you can you tell us more about some of the misperceptions about fellow Chinese, Caribbean, Trinidadians that you would like to dispel, or that are among the many you'd like to dispel through the film, through your work?
I think it's a misconception across the board. I don't think it's specific to my community, that we seem to paint everybody with like very broad strokes. So there's no diversity in the diverse. And somehow we become very protective of our cultural identity, and we want to believe that everybody in our cultural identity looks the same, behaves the same, is exactly the same, from the same heritage. But everybody in my film is Caribbean, and all of us look vastly different. So it's taking away the idea of pairing a particular skin color with a country and just sticking to that. And people ask me, I've gotten this a lot, and they don't mean it maliciously, but they ask me, well, why is it important for you to identify as Caribbean? And I just couldn't understand that question, because, well, why not? That's my heritage. I'm proud of where I'm from. I'm proud of where my family came from and what my family's done down there. So why wouldn't I? Just because of my color? It's kind of weird. Why wouldn't you ask me, why is it important Why is it important for you to identify even as Chinese? Or why does anybody identify as anything? It's because you're proud. You feel like you have a connection there. So even in simple gestures like that and asking questions like that, you realize that people actually already have a bias. They already think something about your color and already are identifying something about you based on your color.
Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think that is a really important way to, or important thing to, it's an important area to just address. And I wish we had more time to discuss this. But I totally agree that it shouldn't, your cultural identity should not be dependent on your skin color, and we should dispel that amongst many other misconceptions. Unfortunately, we only have time for one last question. How can folks continue to follow you, your work, and this project?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, not that frequently, unfortunately, but you can check me out at Danny Ayow. And from there, I have all my other links and you can check out various things about me. So,
well, thank you so much, Danielle, for sharing your project and your time with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So next, we have Bree Nieves, director of NICEVILLE.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi, Bree. Before we get started with the questions, I do want to really acknowledge that among Bree's many accomplishments, she is one of the fellows in CAM's 2021 fellowship class, and also a fellow in the CAM and NOVAC-led fellowship program, The Sauce. So thrilled to have you joining us today, and thank you for sharing this wonderful film with us. So my first question for you is, you addressed a lot of different kind of challenging topics in this film. How did you settle on or decide to focus on those that you did address, including the religion, the challenges of deciding whether or not to move away for college, amongst others?
Yeah, so I actually was raised in an Air Force family in a small town called Niceville. So Niceville is truly a real place, and the decision to leave was something that a lot of my friends kicked around, and a lot of what I was concerned about when I was in high school. It is the rural South, so it is the Florida-Georgia line, Florida-Alabama, and I as I've gotten older, I've always had a really, really thoughtful way of thinking about my relationship with the Lord and what it means as a liberal queer individual in the world as a filmmaker. So addressing these topics kind of felt natural to make space for women of color and mixed race Asian women in the Catholic faith.
Wow. I didn't realize that the film is based on a real location. And I mean, thank you for kind of sharing how, or just what you base this on. I mean, that's really eye-opening. Let's see. So so for my next question, who is the main character based on?
Ophelia. So Felly is my friend Kayla played Felly, and she's kind of based on me when I was in high school. My friend Kayla when Kayla was in high school, in regards to being quieter, because I was more loud and more. I was high school's I think most talkative my senior year, but Felly is definitely a quiet character, and a character that also was created out of a lot of my cousins, a lot of my family members that are Afro Latinx and Filipino, and Afro Latinx and Polynesian. And she really is kind of the inner voice that questions, like, should I say something to the people that are my friends? Should I say something to the people that are in my community? And what does it mean to say anything in in and knowing that people most likely won't care?
Wow. That's, I mean, just knowing that it's based on people that you know, and I could definitely see just the character, just how challenging it was to try to have to grapple with these issues. Kind of knowing that some of these characters are based on you and people in your life. Have any of your friends or family seen the film? And if so, how have they responded to it?
Yeah, so mostly all of my family has seen the film. I think it's mixed reviews. My dad and my mom were definitely on set some days, kind of like gritting their teeth, like wow, this is a little close to home. But I think overall, as I've come into filmmaking and now I'm more in the doc filmmaking space, tackling these concepts is so important to figuring out your identity and who you show up as in spaces. So we all have this way we used to think about our family, and it may be different than we are now, but it's nice to share that at least, and hopefully have family be more open to hearing about how you saw the world.
Wow. I mean, it's interesting to hear that your parents were on set, and it's great that you've been able to share this with people in your life. Do you have any future plans for expanding this project, or what else are you currently working on in terms of documentary? To mention that you are more in the documentary space now.
Yeah, so I'm working on a doc short right now with the Cameron Novak Fellowship, and it is called, well, right now its working title is Malditas, which means it's Tagalog for essentially like a bad female child. But it's about the passing of my uncle from COVID-19 on my birthday about a month ago. And which is so terrible and so heartbreaking. Go in post working on this project is in itself very difficult. But I'm working on a doc feature, which is about, and I'm still kind of working it out, but about cloistered nuns in the Carmel Valley up here in California. And yeah, I think those are my two projects that are coming up.
Well, thank you. And my condolences to your family on the loss of your uncle. Must be so heartbreaking. And I hope that you have the support that you need to get through what must be a really challenging time in all of your lives. Thank you for sharing with us more about your current projects. We're looking forward to seeing how they develop. I have time for one last question. How can folks connect with your work and stay up to date with what you're up to?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram. It's at BREENVS. I have most of my film Instagram sites connected to that and my website. And you can also find my dog there, whom I love. His name is Cashew. So if you do follow me, you'll be like, what is this dog? Yes.
Animal friends are the best. Sorry, I have a cat.
Yes, exactly.
I'm surprised did not interrupt us, but well, thank you for sharing how folks can continue to follow your journey. Really appreciate it. And before we wrap up, I'd like to bring back Kayla and Danielle for just a final goodbye. So thank you for sharing your work with us and making the time and space for this conversation. I really appreciate it. Again, if you haven't, make sure to watch their films, their projects, before the festival ends on May 23rd. And with that, I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next for each of you. And thank you. And see y'all later. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.